Hi, my name is Chase Cunningham, or Dr. Cunningham, Dr. Zero Trust. Anyway, this is kind of a short notice jumping on the, I don't know, thing. But there was an interesting article about AFLAC and some of their issues. And the point that I'd like to make here is not to dump on a particular provider of services or whatever. The reality of it is anyone, anywhere can be compromised because that's literally the accept breach mentality, methodology, strategy, whatever you want to call it. But we buy insurance and services from companies like this, and let's just look at what's going on here. Oh, and by the way, this I would suggest is also a buy the breach opportunity because it's been going on for a little while and the stock is doing the stock thing. So let's look at this really quick. 22 million affected by Aflac data breach. Hackers stole names, addresses, social security numbers, ID numbers, and medical and health insurance. Now, the first bit of this, right? Names, addresses, social security numbers, ID numbers, shouldn't really even care because guess what? That's happened 100,000 times before and big deal. But the other stuff is more important. Insurance agent giant Aflac is notifying roughly 22.65 million people that their personal information was stolen from its systems. And I have the actual disclosure right here, which I can zoom in on. And this is the update to the June 2025 security incident. It initially disclosed it in June 2025. So what happened? On June 12th of 2025, Aflac detected suspicious activity on a limited number of its systems within the U.S. business that prompted to launch an immediate response with support from third-party cybersecurity experts. An unauthorized actor obtained personal information from an Aflac system on June 12th. Aflac determined on December 4th, so what happened between June 12th and December 4th, that the files potentially impacted in the security incident likely contained personal information. How did it take them that long to determine the information that was in there would be a question I would ask. While Aflac has completed a detailed review of the potentially impacted files, it's important to note that we decided early on in our response to provide our customers with support. Well, how generous of you. We did not wait to finalize the review of potentially impacted data to inform our partners, customers about the resources we made available, including SciEx Medical Shield, which includes credit monitoring. Awesome. Love it when you get that for the 55th time. Identity protection, super great. Medical fraud protection and customer support for 2 years. Well, your data is only good for 2 years as long as you're dead within 2 years. And there's a deadline to enroll in those sources by April 18th of 26. What information was involved? The review of the potentially impacted files determined personal information associated with customers, beneficiaries, employees, agents, and other individuals. These files included names, contact information, claims information, health information, social security, and other personal information. So, not stuff you'd want them to take. Some of it's been taken 50 times over, but yeah. What is Aflac doing? Following detection of the security incident, Aflac promptly secured accounts identified as potentially impacted and took additional steps, including resetting passwords. Well done. Aflac is offering free of charge because you've already paid for it by paying for their services. Just note that. SciEx Medical Shield, never heard of that before, which includes credit monitoring, identity theft protection, medical fraud protection, customer support for 2 years. So make sure you die within 2 years so that none of this stuff is actually, still out there. Let's see. What to do? Aflac is not aware of any fraudulent use of personal information as a result of this security incident, but nonetheless, how generous of them, is informing its customers that they can take appropriate steps to protect this information. Yeah, here's a number you can call, and we take the privacy and security information seriously. Yeah, let's go back to the article. The company said it immediately contained the attack and engaged with third-party cybersecurity experts to help the incident response. Again, like I just read for you from their own disclosure, that they identified it in June, and it's now January, and it took them until December to basically have an analysis of the data that was there. That should take days, maybe. Just before Columbus, the Georgia-based company announced that it completed its investigation into the potentially compromised data. Well, gosh, why would you do that right before Christmas? Is it maybe because everybody's got other stuff going on and no one's really paying attention? Good PR move. Based on our review of potentially impacted files, we have determined PII associated with approximately 22.65 million individuals was involved, the company said. The compromise information was the stuff I already talked about once or twice. The review of the potentially impacted information files, customers, blah, blah, blah. 24 months of credit monitoring, super great. Aflac says it is not aware of any stolen information being fraudulently used. Yeah. Scattered Spider was probably involved because they focused on insurance companies for quite a while. Okay, so couple of other questions that we should ask here is let's ask the question of does Aflac, because they're an insurance company, do they offer cyber insurance protection? Yes, a managed security service designed specifically for small businesses to defend against cyber threats, providing an easy to understand, robust solution with features typically found in more complex mid market offerings. Managed security is what they offer. Comprehensive service, small business focus, enterprise level tools. Let's go look at their actual stuff here. Cyber protection from Aflac, which is a duck. Quack. Every dream deserves protection. Oh, and they have a buy now button, which is super nice. Let's see. Traditional antivirus only does those two things. We do all of these. Cloud native, machine learning, words and stuff. And words. Oh, and look, CrowdStrike is one of their providers. Well, isn't that special? Oh, and look, their website actually has an error on it. So anyway, there you go. Aflac Cyber Protection Overview for small business. Get started. What's included? Oh, keepers in their coalition. CrowdStrike. Password manager, onshore support, cyber insurance, which is optional. The guide. No long-term commitment. What happens if we say get started? Here we go. So I'm not going to do this because I don't want the service, but my point here is this is, something that we should think about as we're looking at these companies and these vendors is your Aflac issue, 22.5 million people. Now, if you do the math, let's just ask that question quickly because this is worth doing the math on it. Let's say, how much should a company be fined for a HIPAA violation of 22 million people in the US? Let's just ask this question. Could range from millions to potentially tens of millions, depending on severity. Okay, great. So penalties for HIPAA violations range from, $1,000 all the way up. Yeah. So essentially, this should be a substantial. Let's see. So penalty tiers and fines: unknowing violation, 100 to 50,000 per violation. Reasonable cause, 1,000 to 50,000 per violation. Willful neglect, 10,000 to 50,000 per violation. Willful neglect, not corrected, 50,000 per violation. Real world examples: Anthem was $16 million for 78 million people. Warby Parker, 1.5. Montefiore Medical was 4.5 million there as well. Yeah. And factors influencing the final amount: nature and extent, negligence, compliance history, corrective actions. So now let's ask the question of how much would credit monitoring cost a major company like Aflac for 422 million people? Let's see just what it would cost, because here's the breakdown. Let's see, cost per person per month, $1 to $2 per person per month. Yeah. 24 months. So looks like the low estimate for them is about 528. Yep. 528,000. And then it goes up from there. And then let's one last question. What was Aflac's profit? Profit in 2025. And here's where you can see, let's see, they made $2.267 billion in last year. So Like, here's the economics of this stuff that we should be thinking about as consumers of said services. And these are my opinions. And again, I'm not bagging just on them. I'm just making some points because they happen to be the ones that are in the news today. We as consumers, especially small business people, are paying for services from companies that are continually getting breached. Look at T-Mobile, look at others, and we continue to pay for those services. And then we have all these fines and punitive measures, and other things that are supposed to be protective that they're not really doing anything. It's a cost of doing business. They made over $2 billion last year. $1 million plus for them is a rounding error. It's not even a rounding error. That's a grain of sand on the beach. So the real question I think we should be asking at, or maybe even driving at, as people, as consumers of this stuff, is why would you keep continuing to buy services from organizations that are doing this to you? It's not a good thing. So just think about it, do the economics, do the math, maybe buy the breach, but be aware this is how the game is played, folks. And we, you and me, we are the people that have to deal with the failures of these organizations. As long as you die within 2 years, though, not a problem.